The collapse of the false self. When the mask falls, what remains is the face you have never truly seen. There comes a moment, not always sudden, but often quiet, when the scaffolding you built to survive begins to tremble. The persona, that carefully constructed image shaped by expectation, reward, and fear, starts to crack. You notice it first in the silence. The job that once thrilled you now feels hollow. The praise you used to crave feels foreign. The goals you chase lose their shine. This is not depression, it is disillusionment. It is the beginning of awakening. You are not breaking down, you are breaking open. The false self, the ego, bound identity, crafted over years, nourished by the need to belong, to be admired, to succeed, no longer satisfies. The applause feels distant. The titles become burdens. The relationships tied to performance grow thin. You are no longer willing to trade your soul for approval. I have often said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But first, you must confront who you are not. The ego thrives in mirrors, in feedback loops of image and validation. It is the actor on stage, rehearsed and refined, bowing to an invisible audience, and when the house goes dark, the ego panics. It whispers, without your mask, you are nothing. But that voice is not truth. It is fear. It is the last cry of the old self as it dissolves, and in that dissolution there is pain, yes, a holy kind of pain, because when the false self collapses, you don't immediately meet your higher self. No, first you meet the void, the empty space where ambition once lived, the stillness where busyness used to hide your wounds. You feel lost, unanchored, exiled from the world that once gave you identity. But this emptiness is not death, it is sacred. It is the womb of becoming. When the mask falls, what remains is the face you have never truly seen, raw, honest, ancient, and it terrifies you, because it is not made for performance. It was made for truth. You begin to sense your soul, not as a concept, but as a presence, a quiet, unwavering witness beneath the noise, the self in Jungian terms, not the ego, but the totality of who you are, conscious and unconscious, light and shadow, divine and wounded. In this sacred collapse, you are offered a choice, to rebuild the mask, or to descend deeper into the mystery of your real nature. True transformation begins not with adding more to who you are, but with letting fall what you are not. Let the ambition crumble, let the roles fall away, let the approval mean nothing. Only then can you hear the whisper beneath all things, you were never the mask, you are the one who watched yourself wear it. The vacuum of meaning, you are no longer who you were, but not yet who you will become. After the collapse of the false self, you do not awaken into clarity, at least not immediately. What follows is not light, but a silence so vast it echoes. The familiar gods no longer answer. The rituals lose their power. What once moved your soul now feels distant, irrelevant. The mask is gone, but the face beneath it is still blurred. This is the vacuum of meaning. You feel unmoored, floating between two shores, one called who you used to be, the other who you are meant to become. But neither are within reach. You stand in the sacred liminal, a threshold, a fog of unknowing, and it is here that many turn back, because meaninglessness is terrifying. The absence of direction can feel like death. And in a way it is, but not the kind of death that ends you. Rather, the death that prepares you to live more truly. Most mistake this void for depression, but they are not the same. Depression is a weight. This is a silence. Depression dulls your senses, this heightens them. You are awake now, but to a world that has lost its shape, and that disorientation is not pathology. It is prophecy. You are being emptied. Your old definitions of success, of love, of God, of self, no longer fit. You reach for them and they dissolve in your hands. You search for new ones and they have not yet arrived. This is not a flaw in your psyche. It is the soul's transition. It is the chrysalis, the dark, still chamber where the caterpillar is no longer a caterpillar, but has not yet become a butterfly. I wrote In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order. The vacuum is not barren. It is brimming with potential, but first, the psyche must grieve. You must mourn your former motivations, your borrowed identities, your inherited beliefs. The very structures that gave you a sense of purpose, however fragile, are gone. And without them, you are exposed to the vastness of the real. Here many become restless. They seek distraction, a new ideology, a fresh obsession to replace the old. But this is premature. To rush through the vacuum is to plant seeds before the soil has healed. Do not fear the emptiness. Sit in it. Let it hollow you out. Let it strip even your need for meaning, because in that barren space something ancient stirs, something true. The soul does not speak in answers. It speaks in presence, in stillness, in whispers felt more than heard, and only when the ego's noise has faded can we begin to hear it. You are not lost. You are being recalibrated. Meaning, true meaning, does not return like lightning. It rises slowly, quietly, through the cracks left behind by all that has fallen away. It does not fill the space. It emerges from it. Trust this. The void is not your enemy. It is the sacred womb between who you were and who you are becoming. The death of desire, you mistake it for laziness, but it is the soul withdrawing its fire from illusions it no longer serves. After the false self collapses, and the vacuum of meaning swallows the familiar, there is yet another subtle unraveling, a stillness where once there was urgency. The dreams you once chased with fervor, the achievements that once lit your path with fire, begin to lose their pull. You do not run toward the future, you do not resist the present, you simply stop. And in that stopping, desire dies, not all desire, not the sacred longing for truth, love, or wholeness, but the ego's desires, the grasping, the striving, the hunger to become someone, the appetite to prove, to win, be seen. These fall away like autumn leaves from branches that no longer cling. You are not lazy. You are becoming still. In earlier years, I called this withdrawal of psychic energy libido, the vital force that animates our passion, purpose, and movement toward the world. When we are bound to the ego, this libido flows outward into careers, relationships, goals, accomplishments. The world becomes the arena of becoming. But when the ego is stripped of its illusion of sovereignty, libido returns home. It retreats from the stage and begins its descent inward, to the self. This return is not collapse. It is reintegration. The self, the deep, unified totality of your being, calls back the energy once scattered to the winds of ambition. It says, "Enough chasing, come home." And as this call deepens, what you once desired begins to feel strange, foreign, almost absurd. The urgency to impress fades, the need to prove softens, even survival begins to feel secondary to something deeper, the yearning to know, to remember, to be. You may worry, what is happening to me? You may fear you have lost your drive, your ambition, your spark. But I urge you, do not confuse soul. Rest with sloth. The ego climbs ladders, the self digs roots. Where once there was motion, now there is reflection. Where once there was noise, now silence. You do not act because you must, but because the inner voice has stirred. You wait for a deeper signal, not from society, not from fear, but from the sacred interior. This is not idleness. It is attunement. You are no longer powered by hunger. You are powered by awareness, and that shift, though subtle, changes everything. The house built on want has collapsed. Now you build a sanctuary on presence. The actions that arise now do so from stillness, not compulsion. The desires that remain are not for validation, but for union, with truth, with meaning, with soul. In the death of egoic desire, you find not emptiness, but peace. Not apathy, but clarity, not stagnation, but the first quiet stirrings of your real life. Let the storm settle, let the fire rest, for what comes next is not driven, it is revealed. Shadow integration brings emotional fatigue, One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. There comes a point in the soul's journey where light no longer serves as refuge. The spotlight that once revealed your gifts now turns inward, illuminating not your strengths, but your hidden wounds. What rises now is not inspiration, but confrontation. The unconscious begins to speak, and it does not whisper. It howls. This is the awakening of the shadow, the part of you exiled from consciousness, your unwanted desires, your suppressed fears, your shame, your rage, your need, the pieces you were taught to deny in order to survive, to belong. They do not vanish, they wait, and now they return. You may ask, why am I so tired? You wake with heavy limbs, you walk through the day as though underwater. Your body aches without cause. Your mind, once sharp, is dulled by fog. This is not weakness, it is initiation. Shadow integration is not intellectual, it is embodied. When you face the repressed, your nervous system must reorganize. The psyche, like a stormed temple, begins to clear debris. Every unspoken grief, every uncried tear, every scream swallowed in childhood, now it comes, not in chaos, but in fatigue. Your body knows. Long before the mind understands, the body senses the descent. For to meet the shadow is to undo the scaffolding of false safety. It is to touch grief stored in the tissues, rage coiled in the gut, memories frozen behind the eyes. This emotional labor is invisible to the world, but it is the most sacred work of all. I have seen patients collapse in tears not from sorrow, but from release. When the shadow surfaces, it drags with it lifetimes of silenced emotion, and like floodwaters breaking a dam, it overwhelms, not to punish, but to cleanse. This is why you are tired. You are not broken. You are healing. Do not pathologize your exhaustion. Honor it. Rest is not resistance. It is ritual. The old self is dying, and the new one cannot be forced into being. It must be midwifed through stillness, through tenderness, through permission to feel everything that was once forbidden. You were never meant to carry your wounds alone. The psyche, in its wisdom, waits until you are strong enough to remember. Until you have tasted enough life to survive the return. What rises now may terrify you, but it is yours, it belongs, it is you. In the mirror of your shadow, you do not meet a monster, you meet a child, a forgotten part, an orphan truth waiting not to be fixed, but to be seen. Integration is not transcendence, it is acceptance. And in this profound welcoming of your darkness, you reclaim the light that never left you. Rest, breathe, weep. You are not regressing. You are returning to wholeness, to soul. The ego's resistance to stillness, the greatest threat to the ego is not failure, but stillness, for in stillness it can no longer perform, only be seen. We live in a world that demands motion, constant striving, relentless progress, and unyielding devotion to becoming. In such a world, stillness is a rebellion. It terrifies the modern ego, which survives by doing, by performing, by appearing useful at all costs. But the soul speaks another language. It does not shout, it waits. When spiritual awakening begins, it invites a deceleration, a divine slowing down. The frantic inner machinery of ambition, urgency, and external validation begins to grind to a halt. And in that silence, something ancient and sacred stirs. Yet the ego, shaped by years of conditioning, recoils. It panics in quiet rooms. It doubts when there is no goal in sight. It tells you that rest is laziness, that stillness is failure, that to pause is to be left behind. But this is illusion. What you are experiencing is not a lack of motivation. It is a transformation of values. You are no longer driven by the outer world's timeline. You are learning to attune to the quiet rhythm of the soul, which moves not by clocks but by inner knowing. The ego wants schedules. The self seeks seasons. In stillness, the ego feels it is dying, and in some ways it is, because stillness removes its favorite mirrors, the applause, the metrics, the distractions. It forces the ego to face its own fragility, its dependency on motion to validate its existence. and when the ego resists this stillness, it may disguise the resistance as fatigue, depression, or boredom. But beneath those masks is a truth waiting to be seen. You are not meant to move endlessly. You are meant to listen. This is the space where the sacred begins, not in performance, but in presence, not in action, but in awareness. To reclaim stillness is to say no to the trance of productivity. It is to recognize that you are worthy even when you are doing nothing, even when you are simply breathing, simply being. The ego fears this truth, for it cannot control it. It cannot monetize it. It cannot use it to feel superior, but the self knows. The self waits for you in stillness like a loving parent who never rushes your becoming. It whispers, rest, feel, return to your essence. So if you feel torn, part of you desperate to act, while another longs to rest, know that you are standing at a threshold, one foot in the old world of performance, the other in the sacred field of presence. Honor the war within. Do not shame the ego, but do not obey it either. Instead, become curious about your own inner rhythm. Breathe into your stillness, let it speak. There is wisdom in your pause. There is healing in your slowing down. And there is a self within you, vast and ancient, who has been waiting for this silence all along. The anima's whisper and the search for soul. You are not unmotivated. You are being called inward. There comes a season when the outer world loses its appeal, when the buzz of achievement grows faint and the soul stirs with gentle insistence. In this stillness, you begin to notice a new voice, subtle, poetic, elusive. It speaks not in bullet points or to-do lists, but in dreams, in music that moves you, in an ache for beauty you cannot name. This is the anima or animus, the living image of your deepest self, beckoning you home. The ego, conditioned by society's values, hears only static. It craves measurable progress, promotions, accolades, proofs, but the anima cares nothing for metrics. She cares for mysteries. She invites you into the garden of symbol and myth, where meaning grows not by industry but by wonder. And so you find yourself drawn to abandoned churches, to paintings that move you to tears, to poetry you previously dismissed as impractical, because each is a threshold into your own soul. I have said that the soul speaks in symbol. It will not utter its truth in boardroom jargon or status updates. It will appear in a dream of water flooding a cathedral, in an unexpected longing to wander a moonlit forest, in the uncanny song that plays on your heart. These whispers are invitations to pause, to reflect, to descend into the hidden chambers of your psyche. Do not label this lack of drive. It is not lethargy, it is a summons. Your inner companion calls, come closer, breathe deeper, remember who you are, yet the ego resists. It sees no ROI in soul searching. It fears the unknown, fears vulnerability, fears being unproductive. So it frames the anima's voice as distraction, procrastination, even failure. But this reframing is merely another tactic of the old self, attempting to reclaim control. To heed the anima is to trust in a different logic, one of synchronicity rather than sequence, of meaning rather than motion. You may awaken at dawn, heart pounding with a desire to paint or write, when the world expects spreadsheets and schedules. You may feel inexplicable grief at a sunset, or a surge of purpose in caring for a stray animal. These are not random, they are the soul's language, pressing in on the edges of your conscious mind. In dreams, she speaks most clearly. A labyrinth beckons, and you wander until at its center you meet a figure, sometimes divine, sometimes terrifying, who reflects a piece of your own unclaimed self. You awaken with trembling certainty that life must change, and indeed a shift begins, less urgency to accumulate, more urgency to inhabit your own depths, to honor your own mystery. This inward turn may unsettle those who love you. They will see you withdrawing from their familiar rhythms. They may worry you've lost ambition or slipped into idealism, but you have not lost your way. You have found a new direction, guided by an inner compass that points not north, but inward. The journey of the soul is never straightforward. There will be confusion, resistance, even despair. But remember, The anima's whisper is never a mistake. It is the imprint of the self itself, the guiding thread leading you through the labyrinth of your life. Answer her call, lean into your dreams, listen to the music that stirs your heart, for in these signs lies the map to your true home. Dissolution of persona goals. You are not failing. You are shedding a mask that no longer fits the shape of your soul. The world taught you early, play the part where the mask become what is applauded, and so you built your persona, a carefully crafted identity stitched from expectations and survival. It served you, it opened doors. It gave you language to speak to society, but it was never you. The persona is the garment we wear to move through the collective. Polished, palatable, pleasing, it seeks belonging, and to a degree it protects. Yet in doing so, it demands sacrifice, your wildness, your wounds, your wonder. It tells you what to strive for: titles, status, symmetry, and it names this the good life. Then comes awakening, not with fireworks, but with silence. A quiet undoing. Suddenly, the goals that once lit a fire in you begin to flicker and die. The career ladder feels absurd. Perfection no longer compels. Praise feels hollow. You try to push forward, to reignite the old dreams, but the energy is gone. You call it burnout. Others call it laziness. But deeper than either is a profound truth. The mask is dissolving, and with it the goals it was built to achieve. You are not unmotivated. You are being reformed. The part of you that chased approval is vanishing because the self, the soul behind the mask, is stirring awake. It does not care for applause. It longs for authenticity. It does not want a life that looks right. It yearns for a life that feels true. This is why the old motivation cannot return, because it was never rooted in your essence. It belonged to a self designed to be seen, not to be known. There will be grief here. The goals you once pursued gave you purpose. The dreams tied to your image gave you identity, and now they fall away like leaves from a tree that no longer needs to bloom but must first rest. I have said, in each of us there is another whom we do not know. That unknown self, the one buried beneath years of masks, is emerging. But it needs space, and space requires surrender. Do not fear the collapse. The unraveling is sacred. This is not depression. It is initiation, not failure. It is transformation. In time, new desires will arise, not born of shoulds, but of soul. You may crave simplicity, honesty, nature, solitude. You may feel pulled to create, not for validation, but because it heals. You may begin to listen, not to the noise of expectation, but to the still, small voice within. That voice is not your persona. It is your soul remembering itself. So if you feel lost, if the ladder you once climbed has vanished into mist, know this: you are not falling. You are descending, downward, inward, into the cavern of your truest self. And what you find there will not be another mask to wear, but a face you have never fully seen before. Let the mask go. Let the goals go. Let the persona die with grace. What rises in its place will not need performance. It will simply be you. The path of individuation requires solitude. You are not disconnected. You are becoming indivisible. There comes a silence, unfamiliar and terrifying. The phone grows quiet. The invitations stop arriving. The groups you once clung to begin to feel distant, irrelevant. You used to move with the herd, motivated by their cheers, guided by their direction, but now you drift alone. And the world, unable to interpret your retreat, whispers, "You've lost your fire, you're slipping." But I tell you, this is not deterioration. This is metamorphosis. The path of individuation is not paved by applause. It is carved in solitude. You do not awaken in the crowd. You awaken when the crowd fades, when the noise recedes, and you are left with nothing but your own breath, your own gaze in the mirror, your own questions echoing in the dark. You do not find the self by seeking more connections. You find it by sitting with the space between them. What appears to the world as apathy is in truth a sacred chrysalis. The caterpillar, in its instinctive wisdom, does not rush toward more branches when its time comes. It wraps itself in silence. It dissolves alone, no witnesses, no applause, no validation, the same is true of you. You are not failing. You are folding inward, making room for something more essential than ambition, integration. The psyche, long fragmented by roles, masks, expectations, now calls each piece home, and this homecoming cannot occur in company. It demands solitude, not as punishment, but as the sacred condition of transformation. I have said, loneliness does not come from being alone, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important. When the old language of the persona fades, and the new one of the soul has not yet formed, there is a silence that feels like exile. But this silence is not your enemy. It is the womb of your rebirth. Many will not understand. They will measure your stillness by their own frantic clocks. They will try to pull you back, toward movement, toward noise, toward the known. But you must resist. You must protect this solitude like a flame in the wind. For here, in the quiet, the deeper self speaks, not in declarations, but in symbols, not in answers, but in presence. This is where individuation begins, not with certainty, but with the courage to dwell in uncertainty. Not with a clear goal, but with a relentless commitment to truth, however uncomfortable, and you will weep, and you will rage, and you will feel at times hollow, but this is not decay. This is the chrysalis cracking open. When you emerge, and you will, it will not be to reclaim an old life, it will be to inhabit a new one authored not by the collective but by the soul, one shaped not by fear of exclusion, but by fidelity to inner truth. So let yourself be misunderstood. Let yourself be still. Let solitude wrap you, not in despair, but in preparation. You are not isolating. You are consolidating. You are not disengaging. You are descending. And from this descent, something indivisible will rise. Your soul, whole, unshakable, your own, the return of energy after inner alignment, energy wasted in false pursuits, is reborn as power when you become whole. There comes a moment, after the shedding, after the silence, when something returns. Not all at once, not like lightning, but like the slow, sure rise of a river no longer forced to fight the rocks. Energy stirs again, but it is no longer frantic, hungry, or afraid. It flows, not out of desperation, but out of direction. This is the gift of alignment. You spent years burning yourself out trying to be accepted, to be perfect, to be enough. Your energy was not gone. It was imprisoned in a persona, drained by the need to be what others demanded. And when that mask fell away, exhaustion filled the void. You feared you'd lost your fire, but what was truly lost was the illusion. Now you act not from compulsion, but from calling. The hunger to be seen is replaced by the desire to serve. The need to be admired gives way to the longing to create, to contribute, to live in rhythm with the soul's truth. What once felt like duty now feels like devotion. I have said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Now that the shadows have been faced, your choices change. You no longer chase what drains you. You move toward what brings peace, not ease, but peace. The difference is profound. This energy is not boundless. It is wise. It says no with clarity. It says yes with presence. It doesn't need applause to continue. It flows because it is true. You may notice that what motivates you now seems quieter than before, less flashy, more inward. That is because it comes not from fear, but from soul. You are not being pushed. You are being pulled, not by ambition, but by alignment. So trust this new current. Let it carry you. The chaos has passed. The rocks remain, but they are no longer obstacles. They are companions, shaping your flow, deepening your channel. You are no longer trying to prove you are alive. You are simply alive, and that is more than enough. Embracing the sacred in between, you are not lost. You are being remade. You are no longer who you were, but you are not yet who you will become. You stand in the in-between, a liminal space where the past has died and the future has not yet bloomed. This is not a mistake. This is the sacred middle, where transformation takes its deepest root. Our culture fears this space. It glorifies clarity, speed, achievement. It rushes to define, to diagnose, to fix. But the soul does not move at the speed of the ego. It lingers in the unknown. It waits in the dark, not because it is weak, but because it honors the mystery of becoming. This in-between is not laziness. It is gestation. The seed is not inactive beneath the soil. It is preparing. The caterpillar is not idle in the cocoon. It is dissolving and reforming. So, too, are you. I have said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But to claim this privilege, one must first let die the self that was built to survive. And the death of that self will feel like emptiness, disorientation, even grief. You may find yourself asking, what now, what next? But the answer cannot be rushed. It must emerge. You do not need to be motivated here. You need to be present. Let yourself feel the weight of what is leaving. Let yourself wonder. Let yourself float. In this suspension, your deepest truths are surfacing, not as commands, but as whispers. Eventually, action will return, but it will not come from fear or force. It will rise from the center of your being, where soul meets time. You will know, without striving, what must be done, but for now, rest in the in-between. It is not a pause. It is a passage. It is not the end. It is the becoming. Let go of the need to appear strong. Let go of the pressure to figure it out. Let go of the urge to fill the silence. The sacred is here, in the silence. In the uncertainty, in the space where the old dissolves and the real begins, you are not behind. You are on time with your soul, and when you emerge, you will not return to who you were. You will arrive, whole, authentic, free.